initially American standards through the FASB, and then more recently in the International Financial Reporting Standards through the IFRS Foundation. So it's really the kind of the historical development that is something that is of interest to me. And so I wanted to talk about this development of which is really quite recent, of the International Sustainability Standards Board.
Es-
So,
Especially in 2024 after the standards came in.
yes, yes.
So I just do not want to cut you, and the floor is yours. Actually, the online is yours. And
Okay,
thank you very much again for having you here again.
thank you.
Okay.
So, anyway, the International Sustainability Standards Board, as many of you probably know, is an independent private sector body that develops sustainability disclosure standards, which are called IFRS SDS. And the ISSB operates under the oversight of the IFRS Foundation. And the ISSB was created in 2021, but it did actually not begin issuing standards until 2 years ago in 2023. The IASB, in some respects, is similar to the structure of the IASB. It has 14 members, 3 from Asia, 3 from Europe, 3 from Americas, 1 from Africa, and 4 from any area. The ISSB standards were initially announced by the chair, Emmanuel Faber, at the IFRS Foundation's annual conference in June of 2023. Unlike the IFRS or IASB, which is headquartered in London, the ISSB is headquartered in Frankfurt, and it has sub-offices in Montreal and Beijing. So the purpose of my presentation is to obtain a better understanding of the objectives and scope of international sustainability standards. This is important for international managers who need to report on financial position and results of operations of their companies in accordance with ISSB standards. Now, just a brief history of international financial reporting standards. The International Accounting Standards Committee, IASC, was created in 1973 by professional accountancy bodies, not governments and not NGOs, but rather professional accountancy bodies. Australia, Canada, France, Germany, Japan, Mexico, Netherlands, United Kingdom, and the United States. It had a secretariat in London, and between 1973 and 2001, IASC published international accounting standards, which were not that widely adopted on a global basis. So in 2002, the International Accounting Standards Board, or IASB, was created to produce convergence between global accounting standards. And the IASB issues International Financial Reporting Standards, or IFRS, which many companies in many countries have adopted. And this was partly because in 2002, the European Union mandated that from the beginning of 2005, the IASB standards would be required for consolidated accounts of EU-listed companies. And so this led other countries to adopt the IASB standards, now I think around 144 countries. So it's been quite a success in that regard. Now, beginning in 2021, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which was held in Glasgow, the IFRS Foundation announced the creation of the ISSB. The objective was to bring consistency to disclosures on sustainability for the benefit of primary users of financial statements, which was defined to be investors and creditors. Okay, so there were a lot of predecessor bodies to the ISSB, most of which have been merged into the ISB. But first, we had the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures from 2015 to 2020. That was primarily related to climate. That has been merged with the ISSB. The SSAB, or Sustainability Standards Board, from 2011-2021, which is merged with the ISSB, focused basically on the United States and covered all aspects of sustainability, basically in a very simple framework, ESG. Then there's the integrated reporting framework, which again has been merged with the ISSB, primarily related to triple line reporting of economic, social, and governance. Then there's the Climate Disclosure Standards Board from 2007 to 2021, again merged with the ISSB, primarily related to climate, but focused primarily on Europe. Then there's the Greenhouse Gas Protocol from the late 1990s to the present, climate related for greenhouse gases. And then the Global Reporting Initiative, GRI, from 1997, probably one of the oldest bodies, predecessor bodies. And this is standard setting and training on a global basis. So just to summarize then, the ISSB is global in scope, focuses on enterprise value, integrates financial and ESG data. The TCFD was merged with the ISSB. It's global, focusing on climate risk, and it builds on the TCFD structure, which previously had been elaborated. Then there's the CSRD, primarily focused on the EU, broad ESG impacts, so specifically European related. The GRE, global, focusing on stakeholder impact, so GRE, impact on society, differentiating with ISB, which is impact on shareholder value. Then SASB merged again with the ISSB. It's US-based, industry-specific, and ESG. So ISSB is broader in that regard. So to date, as many of you know, coming from 2023, the ISB has issued two standards, and these are called IFRSs with an S, and so S1 and S2. S1 is general requirements for disclosure of sustainability-related financial information, specifies disclosure requirements so that companies can communicate to investors about the sustainability risk and opportunities they face over the short, medium, and long term. So this is more general ESG disclosure. Statement 2 is specifically focused on climate-related disclosures. It sets out specific climate-related disclosures about climate risk and opportunities. And Statement 2 builds on the requirements set out in S1 and integrates the TCFD recommendations. Okay, so you have a fairly good grounding here now in the emergence of the ISSB, but there's a lot of questions that can be asked that are not necessarily clear. So I'm going to go through a set of questions here and try to answer them in relationship to what the IASB, not the ISSB, the IASB conceptual framework. The IASB conceptual framework basically sets forth the definitions about what is meant by financial reporting and disclosure. Most of the IFRS standards are reporting and some are disclosure. These S1 and S2 are specifically related to disclosure. Okay, so the key question is the IASB standards focus on financial reporting, and they require companies to record. For those of you who aren't accountants, maybe you all are, record assets, liabilities, equity, revenues, and expenses, which are derived from accounting transactions, and to prevent these results in the form of financial statements. So the primary output of the standards of IFRS is financial statements. IFRS S1 and S2 are different because they require disclosures. So, and in fact, there are no assets, liabilities, equities, revenues, or expenses, or even financial statements. Okay, so S1 and S2 are intended to benefit users, but the question is, who are these users? It's a little bit ambiguous as to precisely what is meant by users, and the SS and the standards themselves, S1 and S2, don't really define that. So, in effect, we have to go back to the IASB conceptual framework in order to understand who the users are. So, in this sense, then, the IASB conceptual framework states that the objective of general purpose financial reporting is to provide financial information about the reporting entity that is useful to existing and potential investors, lenders, and other creditors, that is, users, in making decisions relating to providing resources to the entity. But there is no mention of other kinds of users beyond investors, lenders, and other creditors. Okay, so that's one question. The second question, what is a reporting entity? This is also a little bit vague. According to IASB conceptual framework, a reporting entity is an entity that is required or chooses to prepare financial statements. Okay, so if an entity, presumably a corporation, because usually it could be a not-for-profit entity, could be governmental, but mainly this is all being directed mainly to corporations that are required or choose to prepare financial statements. But there is no global authority that requires IASB standards on a worldwide basis. It's up to more than 140 separate jurisdictions to decide what a reporting entity is or possibly is not. In the United States, for example, there's no reporting entities that use IASB standards. Therefore, no U.S. companies are required to use ISSB standards. In France, only publicly listed companies are required to use IASB standards. All other companies in France follow the Plan Comptable Général, which may or may not require conformity with IASB standards. It's most likely that it will, but there's nothing specific in the Plan Comptable that says that they must. Okay, so the definition of a reporting entity is not consistent on a worldwide basis. A third question is, what are sustainability-related risks and opportunities? So statement S1 requires reporting entities to disclose information about sustainability-related risks and opportunities that is useful to primary users of general purpose financial reports in making decisions related to providing resources to the entity. In addition, Statement 1 requires a reporting entity to disclose information about sustainability risk and opportunities that could reasonably be expected to affect the entity's cash flows its access to finance or cost of capital over the short, medium, or long term. So this is a general definition, um, and there's no actual definition of sustainability-related risk and opportunities. Instead, there's a reference to the standards of the Sustainability Standards Board, which of course no longer exists, but the Sustainability Standards Board are divided into 77 different industries. So in other words, you need to go to an industry and the definitions in that industry in order to understand what sustainability related risks and opportunities are. So apart from that general definition, there's no definition of sustainability risk and opportunities. Another question, statement number 2 requires disclosure of a company's CO2 emissions, not just CO2, but greenhouse gas emissions, based on the assumption that lower greenhouse gas emissions will have a positive effect on a company's cash flows. But the question then, this is an empirical research question, and that is there actually a relationship between CO2 emissions and company cash flows? This is a complex question and it depends on various factors, including the type of industry, the regulatory environment, firm-specific characteristics. The actual research has produced mixed results, with some studies indicating a negative correlation, that is, lower emissions is correlated with higher cash flows, but others suggest a positive correlation, that is, lower emissions are correlated with lower cash flows, which in effect would be a negative for investors. So there's nothing in the ISB documents that explain what these mixed results are and basis for establishing the standards in that regard. Another question is, how many jurisdictions have adopted IASB standards? So the answer is that 36 out of 144 have adopted to date. However, this does not include the European Union because they have their own standards, which are actually more strict. It also does not include the United States because the Securities Exchange Commission has withdrawn its support for climate disclosures. So that means they are not required in the US. That is, US companies are not required to follow ISSB standards. However, many companies voluntarily disclose some sort of climate information. So it's a mixed picture in that regard. So overall, the conclusion is that the support for the IASB is growing, but somewhat slowly. There's a lack of consensus on reporting entities and which entities should be included in the definition. There's a lack of consensus regarding the definition of investors, users, and stakeholders and what type of information they should receive. The ISB has concentrated on climate disclosures and not the wide range of ESG disclosures, although they have agenda projects to extend and issue more standards that will cover the wide range of ESG disclosures. And in particular, Scope 3 emissions regarding climate effects on the whole value chain are difficult to measure, and there's been a lot of conflicts from preparers of financial statements saying that this is a very difficult thing to determine, and they're getting some agreement on the part both of the European Union and the United States to basically not include Scope 3 emissions within the types of disclosures that are being contemplated. So thank you very much. This has been a summary of the emergence of the Sustainability Standards Board. And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for research and teaching as well. So if there are any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Thank you very much, Professor Baker. Personally, and I think the whole audience have listened to you and have learned a lot about the historical perspective of the establishment of the ISSB and the standards. And I personally felt myself that there are questions and the answers, so we're kind of exams, but actually in a short period of time in our country, there would be sustainability entrance exams. So I felt like I have some questions and I'm ready for entering those exams and the answers of those. So I felt by myself like this. So thank you very much for having a very kind of a broad summary of the establishment of the organization and the standards. Actually, they are new. Yes, I know the support for the ISSB is growing slowly because for me, they were late a little bit because there was the GRI, SASB, and all the other stuff. So I don't know why they have waited so long to come up with this organization and standards at that period. But above all, if I would like to talk from Turkish side, we are actually waiting for the first sustainability reporting reports, which is in line with the new ISSB standards coming from 2024 sustainability reports period. So we are just taking a look at to those reports and trying to understand whether the ISSB has been really included in those disclosures actually. So we are also new, like all the other jurisdictions, but I know that 17 jurisdictions have already, if I am correct, you can, if I'm wrong, you can just correct me. 17 jurisdictions have been already accepted those ISSB standards. So we are one of those as Turkey, so we are proud of that. But we are just looking at to the reports whether there are some missing still information, which is my research area right now. So thank you very much for sharing those valuable and very prolific information with us. And I'm going back to the audience, and if we have any questions for him, we are free to take your, and he would like to hear from you if you have any questions for him. Any? Okay. Yes? I even don't hear you. How would he hear you? Professor Charles Cho was our other keynote speaker. We have also listened to him, and he also shared very valuable information with us in the morning. You can just come from here if you'd like to. So he has a question for you, Professor Baker.
Can you hear me now? Hi, Richard.
Hi, how are you, Charles?
Yeah, I wish I would seen you here. I saw you in the program. So as you mentioned, I delivered something more globally speaking, and then mentioned some of what you said, but I think your comparison, how it evolved with the ISB is quite interesting. You presented a relatively mild version of what the ISSB does and does not. Can you elaborate more on your view of what it's, in the future, of how you see, based on what you've seen, because you've studied that for a long time, the ISB. This is obviously a new board. And as I mentioned this morning, personally, I think that they are not addressing the right sustainability issues. You kind of alluded to that a bit. So just in terms of your experience from studying standard setters for a long time, historically speaking, how do you foresee the future, given the existence of the GRI, as you mentioned, the HSSB, and also the European Union CSRD, European Sustainability Reporting ESRS?
Well, this is a very complex topic, and I know that Charles is one of the leaders on a worldwide basis, even of sustainability issues. But in some respects, it's a bit of the creation of the IASB by the IFRS Foundation is a little bit confusing in the sense that the IFRS Foundation effectively was focused for all of its existence on financial accounting, much like the FASB in the US is focused on financial accounting. And so to take on sustainability standards and disclosures, I think is a big task. And I think Emmanuel Faber has done a great job, but it's a difficult job. And there's a couple of choices that they made fairly quickly. Like, for example, they only, as far as I understand it, I may be totally wrong, but as far as I understand it, ISSB only does single materiality, not double materiality. So I think they've specifically decided not to take on double materiality. And the second thing is that, as I was indicating, who are the users of IASB standards? And it seems to me if we say that the definition of users is found in the conceptual framework of the IASB, then users are more or less defined as investors and creditors, not the broader community. So I think that potentially could be a conflict with broader sustainability issues. So, to a certain extent, it might have been potentially better if the IFRS Foundation had not done this, but let it be in the hands of another organization, such as the Sustainability Standards Board or the GRI, to take on this actually important but difficult task. So anyway, that's kind of where I think where we are at the moment.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, Professor. As I said at the beginning, we were really proud of having you here. And I just, on behalf of the audience and the whole organizing committee, I would like to have a promise from you to have you here physically, maybe in the future, in a short period of time, maybe next year. What do you think?
Thank you very much.
John will work on it. I'm totally sure. Thank you very much for having you here.
Have a good rest of conference.
Ne?
I hope you have a very good rest of conference.
I'm sorry, I don't hear you.
I'm saying that I hope you have a very good rest of your conference.
By the way, a news for you, kind of an information. Just to give you a thank, we have made a kind of a planting donation from a Turkish donation of planting just for your name.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
We thank you, and we are looking forward to see you.